Not only has chronic illness affected my social life in adulthood, but since I've been sick for as long as I can remember, it played a huge part in my childhood and almost forming my personality. For example, with sleepovers, I a lot of times wouldn't be able to go to sleepovers because I hadn't known about it in advance. Like, I feel like childhood is full of like spontaneous, like, oh my gosh, let's sleep over. Especially like after functions with family friends. And if I didn't have my medications with me because it wasn't planned in advance, then I wasn't able to go. And it's horrible knowing as a kid and watching all of your other friends get to stay over at friends' houses, and you're, especially when you don't understand fully the difference between being chronically ill and being healthy, that feeling of being punished for something completely out of your control is really, really hard to handle and accept. So growing up with chronic illness, I missed school often, whether it was for doctor's appointments or because I had pneumonia and couldn't breathe and needed to be in bed. I would probably say I missed 3 to 7 days every month to 2 months, and it sucked. I felt like the friend groups always changed when I was gone. There was always some like big drama that had happened that I missed out on. And so I felt not only like I missed out on learning and that I was behind in school and had to stress about catching up in that regard, but also I had to try to catch up on all of the happenings with my peers. And when you're in grade school, especially, it's not like you have a lot of time during the day dedicated to socialization. You have recess, but a lot of times when you're little, you're playing. And so I was always like trying to figure out the new dynamic, and it was very, very stressful. And it ended up causing a lot of anxiety when it was time for me to go back to school after being sick. It was this dread from having to stay home, but also this relief from not having kind of all of that pressure of figuring out what the fuck was going on and who was my friend, who wasn't my friend. And then when it was time to go back to school, I had horrible anxiety. It also doesn't help that when I would go back to school, oftentimes I would have to go to the nurse's office during the day to either get breathing treatments or take medication. I also frequented the nurse's office in school because I felt like shit most of the time. And I was also very self-aware, so I could tell when my body was starting to take a turn. And so I would have to go call my mom, and we would go to immediate care or my primary care, because if we didn't get on it right away, then things went downhill very, very quickly. Kids gave me shit for going to the nurse's office. Kids gave me shit for having to get a snack from my teacher because my blood sugar had dropped, or I was getting sick because of the meds that I was on. People gave me shit about missing school. And when I say people gave me shit, the people that gave me shit weren't just 7-year-olds. It was also the teachers. Teachers thought I was faking it. Teachers thought my parents were really relaxed with me, and which was the opposite. My parents made me go to school the minute I was healthy enough to, and sometimes that meant that I was shooting snot rockets into tissues, which also gives you a little anxiety because 7-year-olds don't really like snot rockets if they're coming out of girls' noses. If I was a boy, maybe the snot rockets would have gained me some clout, but it did not. One time I had a teacher actually ask me, did that snot come out of your throat or your nose? And so I lied. If you're watching this, then it did come from my throat. Sorry. But you probably shouldn't point that out and make me feel shitty about the fact that I am coughing up physical balls of mucus. The more you know. Teachers, I had some really, really great teachers, but I also had some really bitchy teachers. And teachers that probably didn't understand the impact their words and accusations had on me. It is a huge mindfuck. And, through elementary school, you're really forming your personality and your sense of self-worth and your perceptions on how the world works. To have so much of your development be impacted by chronic illness, not only the trauma from procedures and doctor's appointments and medications and emergency room visits, but also the trauma involved in not fitting in at school and having teachers and students not always be the nicest. Kids are mean. Sometimes teachers are meaner, but I guess I turned out okay. I think a lot of elements of my personality come from growing up being a sick bitch. I think my constant self-deprecation and sense of humor definitely comes from my need to try to make fun of myself before other people can make fun of me. That's kind of always been the way I looked at things. So for example, when I had steroid face in high school, I would make jokes about how fat my face was so that it wouldn't hurt if other people said it. Now, of course, if people agreed, then it kind of hurt also, but that was kind of the defense mechanism that emerged, and I would say really formed not only how I try to protect myself, but also my sense of humor that is sometimes a little questionable. So, I think I developed a lot of social anxiety growing up due to my experiences with chronic illness. I was always prone, I think, due to my genetics and the way my brain works, to anxiety, but I definitely had at times crippling social anxiety due to just not feeling like I fit in, or feeling like I was missing out, or feeling embarrassed because of things that I couldn't control. I had a huge germ issue. I have pretty severe OCD. It's gotten a lot better since I got Finn, and now I let my dog's butt basically cuddle with me at night. But my OCD definitely worsened due to not feeling like I had a lot of things in my control. I was a severe germaphobe. But before being a germaphobe was cool, mind you. It honestly kind of pissed me off a little bit when COVID happened and everyone all of a sudden gave a shit about washing their hands and not touching door handles and being worried about people breathing in their face, because I was a germaphobe before it was cool. I think somehow in my brain, being a crazy germaphobe was my way of trying to prevent myself from getting sick. Obviously it didn't work, but I tried real hard. For example, when I was little, I would go to the bathroom and I would stand in the bathroom until someone else would open the door for me. And if no one opened the door for me, then my mom in about 15 to 20 minutes would come get me from the bathroom. I also went through this phase where I felt my stupid music teacher told me that Beethoven died of lead poisoning. Me being me, and I will admit I was a little too smart for my own good, and I read a lot of really boring autobiography books all the time as a child. So learning that Beethoven died from lead poisoning, I did research and I realized, lead poisoning still exists, and I would check the Target recall boards for recalls for lead-based paint in my brother's toys, and I had a lot of rules. I still have quite a few rules, but it's gotten better. It's gotten a lot better. So I went through a phase where I would be afraid that I had dirt or germs or lead in my mouth, and I would spit. That also isolated me quite a bit from my peers. No one really likes to be with the girl that spits all the time. I had issues. I was in therapy, but I would refuse to tell the therapist what I was actually feeling. The first time I was honest with a therapist, I think, was about a year ago. Shout out to Brooke. But I was something all right. I mean, I totally understand why kids made fun of me, but still sucked. I always had, people always liked me, but I definitely always felt different, and I felt like I missed out on a lot, and I always felt like I was unaware of kind of what was going on. I don't know. Trauma's a bitch, and so am I. Ha ha ha. Is this episode done yet? Have I recorded enough? No one actually watches this shit, so it's okay.